Hello and welcome back to AC's Make and Repair. Well, today on the channel, we've got something today that I've been meaning to do for a while. I have an old workbench in the back of our workshop that is pretty well, you might as well just call it a storage bench. Some of you guys might have one of those in your shed too, where you just seem to pile all this good stuff that you need and need to keep, etc. It didn't start off intentionally like that. It started off with a wood voice on it. Well, it actually has two wood voices, two different styles of wood voices on it. But I have a standard quick release. It's a fairly old one, fairly large one. It's about a 10-inch one, I think it is. And it has no timber jaws on it at the moment, so I'm going to pull it down, pull it out, pull it down totally, and clean it up and actually give it a paint too. And then reassemble it and make new timber jaws for it. And it has been in a video or two of mine, but I've been meaning to do it for a long time, just to get on top of it and neaten it up totally. So let's get into it then. I'll show you the voice first, and that way we've got a bit of before and after, and then we'll see the process through. Well, here it is here. It's a fairly old voice. I was doing a shed clean out for a fellow years ago and had a heap of other junk, and was amongst it. It was the best thing in the whole shed. The rest of it went to the dump pretty well. But this vice was there on an old broken down bench, and he said, just take it, mate, I don't need it. And so I grabbed it years ago, and it's a pretty good little old vice. I would say, I'll just measure that up. Yeah, it's a 10-inch, and so the jaws I'll make protrude a little bit past that. I'll probably go past and make it at the jaws about 11 inches wide. It's a quick release. Goes in there quite good. Needs a bit of lubrication. I'm going to paint it up and clean it up. And it's got a bench dog that hasn't been used for years. I'll probably leave the pipe handle on it here. It's doing the job quite well. These nuts, I'll show you on the front. These nuts here aren't original. It didn't have any original nuts on it. I don't know what happened to them. I might even look online to see what the originals were like. But at the least I'll put these in the lathe and machine them down and dome the heads of them a bit. So just so it looks a lot neater than what it is now. And comes up a lot better than what it is now. So as you can see, it says the Columbian Voice. And Manufacturing Co. Cleveland, Ohio, USA. So it is a USA made voice. And like I say, I don't know how old it is. I'll look it up a bit online before I do any more work on it. And we'll go from there. So let's get into it. Let's see how it's done. Let's see how it comes up. Been meaning to do it for a long time. So the first thing I did was remove it from the bench. It's held in by two 75mm batten screws. Here you see me moving both those. Now for a total teardown, I start by removing the handle, took the bolt out, pull it down. Very simple to pull to pieces, as you can see. This is where the half nut is underneath this bracket here. I had to put it in a vise with a big screwdriver and with the help of a shifter I undid the two screws, the two bolts I should say. And you'll see the brass half nut in a second as we pull it to pieces. Here's the half nut. It's brass. It's quite common for these vices to have brass nuts at times. So I just remove it out using a simple screwdriver to lever it out. There's a spring on the back of it that holds tension on it. As you can see in the picture there, it's a bit worn, this one. It's had a bit of a life. In this footage you see me trying to remove the pin that raises the dog up and down. It's a press fit pin. Got a pair of vice grips on. I'm turning it very gently because I don't really want it to snap off and then have a big problem trying to get it out. But after much trials I do get it out, but I just have to take my time. So here I put it on the vice, put a bit of WD on it and held it more secure. Put the vice grips back on it, took my time, eventually got it out. Took a fair bit of time to get out though. But I sort of nailed the head on the end of the pin though, so as you'll see later in the video I ended up making a new one out of brass. So after I totally dismantled it, I gave everything a good thorough wire brushing. I'm using a wire brush cup here on a little 4-inch angle grinder. These do a fantastic little job of cleaning off any scale and any loose paint, etc. This particular vice must have been out in the weather for years before I got it, because these, what you see on these slide rods that I'm cleaning up at the moment, were very deeply pitted. Most of it was pitted bad. Even the cast iron jewels had a fair bit of pitting on the top of them. So I surmise, this thread did too, had pitting on it. I surmise that it was out in the weather for some time. Just to end up getting it wire brushed properly, I not only used the cup one, I used a flat one in another grinder. I also used like a pencil type of wire brush in a drill. As you can see, I'm using it there. It's like a 41. You get into them little nooks and crannies with it. I also used a die grinder with a small wire brush in it too, and that got in around some of these little tight spots. I'm using that here now. It's good to get in those spots. I'd like to set up a sandblaster properly to do all this sort of thing one day. If you're wondering what the big white block of wood is for, we just got sick and tired of leaning over the board on the sawhorses, so I put that big block of wood there. It's about 8 inches square, and it lifted it up another 8 inches. Saved me back a bit. My back was killing me by this time. Just wire brushing all this stuff. Here I'm washing everything down with a solvent to get all the grease and grime and all the dust off it, and clean all the parts up correctly. And once I finish doing this, I'll be starting a painting process. Those nuts on the front of the slide rods that I showed you at the start of the video, I'm now machining those down. I have to machine about 10mm off them, just to make them uniform. I looked online to see what these vices looked like originally, and they're only thin nuts these, so I'm machining these down to roughly what they look like when this vice was originally manufactured. Now it's on to painting. Well, I started off, I'm using a hammered finish paint here. It's an industrial sort of paint. It's a bit runny, this paint. I started using a brush. I have brushed this on in the past and it's been quite good, but this was quite thin. So I ended up changing over and starting to spray it on. It actually came up a far better finish when I sprayed it on. But I have brushed one of these on before. It mightn't have been this brand. But anyhow, like I said, I sprayed it on. It comes up quite good. I'll show you in a minute how good it does come up. I'll lift this up to the camera and show you right now. You can actually see the hammered finish paint right now. Comes up quite effective. So it came up quite good after I finished painting. These are all the parts. Some parts I didn't have to paint, like the slides. That would have been a hindrance more than a help. The thread obviously didn't have to be painted. There's the half nut there again. And so I've painted everything that needed to be painted. Now I'm just letting it dry, and I'll come back and reassemble once it's dry. So I started a reassembly now, cleaning up the little spring here for the leaf spring to hold the dog in tension. And I'll lubricate everything as I put it back together too. I'll show you that brass pin once I put the dog back in. I turned it up. I didn't show you the footage of doing that, but I made a new little brass pin as a handle for that. I punched that in, slipped it up and down. It's working more than good now. I'll show you that in a second. Give you a close-up of that too. I machined a nice little bolt up to go through the handle here. I'll show you that in a second. Here it is here. I domed the ends of the head of the bolt and the nut. Now for reinstallation. I'll reinstall it the same way as I pulled it down. I just used the two 3-inch batten screws through the apron into the bench top. More than solid enough for what I do. I don't use. If I need any more strength, I will put the screws up underneath the bench like there's provision for. Although when I put the back on this, the new back, I will have to screw that into the apron too, which will help support it as well. It's very sturdy just with these two screws alone, believe it or not. So I decided to do the jaws out of some plywood I had. So I quickly marked out. I ended up going 12 inches wide with the jaws. Made it more uniform. And so I put the front one on and screwed it into position. The jaws are about 4 inches deep in themselves, so I put a little spacer, 1/8 spacer, on top of the slide rails. So the boards didn't actually, the jaws actually didn't touch the slide rails or hinder it in any way. Well, not so much of a problem on the front jaw, but on the back jaw. So here you see I spaced the sides of this one out, screwed right into the apron, through the back jaw, the timber jaw that is. And it came up and made it more sturdy. Everything, I countersunk the heads really good. That's what I'm doing there. And it works fine. It's tighter than what it was, which is good, for that half nut probably won't wear as bad now. Rightio, thanks for joining us today as we fixed the old wood voice there. Took a bit of work. The half nut that's in the voice, the brass half nut, has some damage to it. I can remember now when I first got it, I had to shim it up. And I shimmed it up with a bit of rubber insertion so it held constant tension on the thread, the jaw part of that half nut. So I've done it again. I'll put a new piece in there and it holds tension up against the thread nice and tight. So hopefully that'll keep it going for many more years. It's been going for years like that now. I intend on using it more and more in the future though. So look, if you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and please share us with your friends. You know, you can hit the share button down the bottom there and you can share it via and through whatever app you want to share it through. That would be appreciated. There are some playlists that cover many of these things, and have a look at the playlist. You might want to play one of those. There's some good stuff there too, to do with handles, to do with kitchen items, you know, kitchen utensils, etc. too. All right, I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for joining us though.